Good evening and welcome to the February 18th, 2026 regular meeting of the Town of Erie Planning Commission. The time is now 6:30 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Booth.
Here.
Commissioner Sawbush.
Live from Town Hall.
Commissioner Dreckman.
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Commissioner Bayham.
Here.
Vice Chair Brodus.
Here.
Chair Hemphill.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have an agenda before us this evening. Does staff have any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
All right. Does anyone want to request to make a motion to amend or approve?
Motion. Director.
Second. Planning Commission meeting minutes. Do we have any changes or requests to make a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second. Dreckman.
That was Brodus and Dreckman. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. This brings us to the public comments portion of the meeting. This is for public comments intended for items not already scheduled on the agenda to be discussed. Is there anyone in the waiting room signed up or in the audience for general public comment?
We have 4 attendees in the virtual waiting room. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak at this time. No hands raised virtually. On the sign-up sheet, we have 4 people. It looks like they're all here for general business items.
Okay. So I will do my spiel when we get to that section. We'll move to general business. We have 3 items on the agenda for general business. Goal is to have this meeting finished by 8:30. Our first item is 2026-99 Comprehensive Plan Implementation. The time is now 6:32 p.m. and I'll turn it over to staff for presentation.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see all your faces again. I know it's been a little while since I've been here. But my name is Josh Campbell. I'm the Senior Strategic Planner for the town. And I will be here to cover a high-level status update of where we are with the comprehensive plan and some next steps that are underway. Also joining me is Kelly Driscoll, Planning Manager up there, to also assist with any questions that may come about throughout this presentation. So I'm going to keep it fairly quick on the front end and follow up with some more detail in the next steps section. But what we're going to be covering today is a high-level look at some of the amendment research and proposals that we were given by Council on January 6th. We'll move into an update of where we are with the Unified Development Code and where we will be moving forward next, as well as giving a overview of one of our implementation items, which was our historic Old Town efforts that have been taking place over the last 6 months or so. And then finally moving into next steps, where again I'll be covering more of the details associated with the items listed above. So diving right in, on January 6th, staff went to Town Council to present on the comprehensive plan, specifically on land use categorizations and their densities associated with them. This presentation was specifically to cover the residential and mixed use categories. As we have been hearing, those were of some concern. So we wanted to take this in front of council to get some understanding and direction of where we wanted to potentially go with either some needs for amendments or some clarification with the comprehensive plan. While we did present on every residential category as well as mixed use, in the end, the only concern really lied with the residential medium land use category, which you can see on the screen in front of you. As it's presented and seen within the comprehensive plan, that density is between 8 to 18 dwelling units per acre. Now, to provide some more context of this, I wanted to showcase what does that mean for the town of Erie and the planning boundary as a whole. What you are seeing in front of you are only 3 parcels that are undeveloped or not entitled, meaning of all the parcels that are designated as this residential medium within the town boundary as well as the planning boundary, only 3 of them were considered to be new or under this new residential medium category. Now, with the direction of council and the conversation that happened on January 6th, there has been a discussion of exploring what a new or additional category of residential medium could look like. Specifically, this is exploring what we're tentatively or draftly calling residential medium low. That would have a density spread of 8 to 12 dwelling units per acre, but we would also still be keeping this residential medium. Now, whether that name changes to residential medium high or stays residential medium, we'll discover that later on. But that categorization would still exist, but now under a 13 to 18 spread. With that in mind, there is also some need to address what that land use looks like on these specific parcels. So we will be looking at specifically 111th and Arapahoe was the biggest talking point of what this new land use category could look like and potentially could exist as. So we will be exploring that, as well as looking at the 2 other parcels. The other one was previously known as Page, or known as the Village at Coal Creek property, which is the northeast corner of Old Town, as well as I believe, roughly 4-acre parcel in the southeast or southwest portion of Old Town as well. Again, I'll dive into a little bit deeper a process of what that looks like here in the next steps coming in the following slides. The other category that existed with the discussion of changes was specifically related to the community building blocks chapter of the comprehensive plan. What staff has been realizing through application review as well as from feedback from council is that there's a need for enhancing a little bit of the context-sensitive design elements within this chapter, specifically as it relates to understanding the needs and boundary setting of different land uses existing next to each other. This is something that we do need to explore a little bit more in depth in terms of what that's looking like at this point in time. I'm not entirely sure. I'll be honest with that. However, we do acknowledge that it would probably involve either additional policy creation or enhancing some of the policies that currently already exist with more intense language, with a lack of better terms to use there. Now, what does that mean in terms of next steps for implementation? Within the 2026 budget, we do have approval of $250,000 to bring on a consultant to update the UDC. The reason why this is important is now that the comprehensive plan has been adopted and is in place, we want to make sure our UDC is representative of what the comprehensive plan has been showing. We're intending to start this last year. However, we're getting to it this year. And that brings me into our timeline. We do anticipate hopefully issuing an RFP and onboarding a consultant hopefully within the next few months with a summer kickoff where we'll go into existing conditions, data discovery, policy creation of draft templates of framing of words. Didn't sound appropriate to mess that one up. But through that, we'll hopefully get an early draft out to the community to review, as well as you all and town council and supporting staff and other members of the community to review hopefully early 2027 with a final adoption happening expected next year. And then the last item we wanted to talk about, again, before I go into more of the details of what this looks like in terms of next steps, is Historic Old Town. This was a call-out action item of the comprehensive plan, specifically as it related to doing a neighborhood plan for just Old Town. However, when we got to the point of wanting to kick off this project, we did want to take a step back. We recognized that the ability to create a plan of this nature required us to bring community members from the neighborhood onto steering committees. And we wanted to make sure that we had those relationships established before asking someone to commit to the project of that nature. So we took a step back and really wanted to embed ourselves into Old Town specifically, where we would have an opportunity to get to know the residents in a more close-knit manner, build up rapport. We called this a social equity or social capital exercise. This consisted of 11 different outreach opportunities. 4 of those were through town-hosted events, specifically where we did community coffee hours on the weekend at the park. We did an ice cream social at the splash pad, as well as we did a neighborhood walk where we were able to have residents join us, as well as residents be stops along the way, where council members, fellow staff, and other residents could just get to know each other more and understand the relationship needs within that community. Why we did this is to really understand at a high level what it is Old Town community needs. The last thing we want to do is go into the community saying this is the idea of what we're going to do without having that feedback, that conversation with the community. And through that, we discovered that a neighborhood plan is not the most appropriate thing to start with this community right away. That is a big project to try to tackle. What we discovered through these conversations is that there's a lot of incremental steps or programs or policies and procedures that we could evaluate to help assist and build up that community, that trust within Old Town. And so through that, we came up with some quick, medium, and long-term items that kind of rise to the top of addressing some of the early on concerns that we've been hearing within the community by allowing us to also still continue to build a relationship with staff as well as amongst the community members themselves. I'm not going to go through every single item that's on here, but again, they're broken down into quick, medium, and long-term goals. As we know that some of these projects just require more time commitment, more exploration, potential funding needs, whether that's through grant dollars or trying to have funding set aside in the budget, but just really exploring things that we can help enhance the community and support them as a whole, and allow for them to build more trust within the town, and especially with the staff as we try to create documents that are truly representative for them and what the community needs moving forward. So that brings us into next steps. And this is where I'm going to break down each of the last 3 items I talked about, specifically with the comprehensive plan and the amendments and research that's been associated with those in terms of the land use category changes as well as policy changes. First and foremost, transparency is key with this process. The plan was initiated and created with a lot of community and support. So the process of coming back with potential changes to what we heard from the community beforehand requires us to need to take this back out to the community again. We want to first have this out in front of everyone to understand what these changes would be, what impacts or trade-offs that might mean for the community, as well as just have that opportunity to have conversation back and forth just like we did for the initial adoption back in 2024. With that also comes some technical research and technical analysis. As you might recall, we did do a land use fiscal analysis with the comprehensive plan initially. So we would want to bring that back into the conversation in terms of addressing, what does that financial analysis mean, specifically if we were to be adjusting a few parcels or even introducing a new land use density categorization. Again, that requires us coming back to council or coming back to the community for feedback and input, as well as coming to you all, because ultimately we would need your recommendation of approval before we would take this to council for final amendment approval. So again, we anticipate having conversations with you all. I believe there are a few of you also served on our technical advisory committee and or our planning advisory committee, or PAC or TAC. So we want to bring back that group as well and rehab that conversation of where we are at with amendments, where we're going next, and also just, again, getting your feedback throughout that process. This would operate the same exact way as we did with the comp plan, again, coming back to you all for adoption recommendation approval before going to council for the same process. So again, moving into the UDC update, we'll be hopefully issuing an RFP here within the next few months. Again, we're going to work on building that scope as well. So that may include having conversations with you all as well as other town staff to see if there's any holes or gaps that we may need to fill since we first started this conversation about a year ago. And then lastly, moving into historic Old Town. As I mentioned, we had the quick, medium, and long-term items. Staff is going to be taking the next couple months to assess what these programs or policies could look like in terms of implementing within the town, also assessing whether there's any grant funding available that really helps with these more community-oriented grassroots efforts to ultimately lead to the outcome of getting towards either a neighborhood plan or historic preservation focus of some sort specifically for Old Town. I realize I went through a lot of that fairly quickly, and there may be more detailed questions that you may have, so I would like to turn it over to you all and see if I can try to answer or address any of those.
Thank you for your presentation. Time is 6:46, and we'll move to commissioner questions. Again, we'll do the 2 questions and then all the fun we do here. Anyone want to start, or should I just pick one of you? Commissioner Salish.
Why not? Okay, so slide 6, the UDC items. The last item on there, increased use of standard zoning districts instead of plan development, PD zone districts. Is this because we're basically coming to an end of these large parcels of land where they've required the PDs because of how expansive they were, all that was entailed in those, and now we're dealing with smaller pieces that are really infill development that may already have those zoning classes on them? Or what exactly is the idea behind that? Because within the past 3 to 5 years, it's been try to get everything to PD so that we can get what they want and it fits within their specific needs.
I think I'm going to lean a little bit on Sarah on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, great. So Sarah Nermella, Planning and Development Director. So great question. This is something that every community wants to get to, is to not have to be negotiating every aspect of a project. And it's not necessarily the size of projects, but the intent when we redo the Unified Development Code, our hope is that we are reflecting what's in the market now, what's being built, and so that our standards actually accommodate what people are building right now. So we're not having to look at setbacks that don't work anymore or specific massing controls that aren't relevant. So our hope is that we do have more straight zone projects and that we are updating the code to just be able to accommodate those. And we're going to look into what does that mean? Is it less standard, less restrictiveness versus more? But we definitely want to test that out.
You made a comment of standards that reflect what is being built right now. If you remember with the alley loaded products, we were playing a hurry up situation because we had so many of those that were coming forward to us through all those developments with the 0 lot lines. And we were probably 2 years behind most of the developments that were already moving forward. I think there was 1, maybe 2 that actually used the zoning as it's sat in the UDC for those products. So is there a way we can be ahead of where the market is and try to think of, try to look at, what other communities are seeing around the nation? Because typically those will come our way because trends change and there are certain areas that are trend setting.
Right. Yeah. No, I love where this question is going because this is something that we want to flesh out with during the stakeholder process and the code update, is that we want to work with developers and understand where are things going. I think Josh mentioned earlier that part of our scoping of just the update itself could include some of your thoughts as you've gone through, and actually tested out, applying our standards. So we want to be able to our best ability, address what we know is there now, talk to developers, see where things are going. And I don't think we'll ever just have it right, but we're certainly going to look at other communities. What are they doing? And, you know, we'll probably always have some type of plan development ability so that, or variances or something that, you know, where we can have that outlet for creativity and new things.
Those are my two.
Thank you. Commissioner Booth?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I particularly like the Old Town aspect of all of this. My first question is, in there is a quote, I assume, from a resident. There are 2 Old Towns within Old Town.
No question.
What does that mean? What are they thinking?
Yeah, so I will say that quote really stuck with me because I also very early on did not understand what they meant, and that required a lot of conversation that I think initially wouldn't have taken place had we not started these efforts. One of the conversations, or this quote relayed to, there's Old Town Briggs, there's the commercial district, and then there's the Old Town residential. Everything that surrounds Old Town commercial area. They see the value in both. However, their concern is that they exist separately, when in reality they're both in the same geographic region. They're both serving the community. Is there a way to be more branded and identity focused in that Old Town isn't just Briggs Street, it's the entire neighborhood. So that was a very powerful quote that I felt that a community member shared with us of how can we address this isolation or disassociation within a neighborhood that's both considered Old Town specifically.
Okay. That's it for now.
I'll just keep going down the line if you're okay with that, Vice Chair Broadus.
Sure. So that was one of my questions. The other was the last update, you had said approximately 5 years, and I quickly looked and it was updated in 22, so I understand why you're saying 5 years. So I didn't have any other questions.
All right. I'll go. I know in the past there was discussion of like a historic district, and maybe I'm misremembering. And I think you were going to talk with the residents about that. Did that come up during your?
So yes and no. I will say, so that conversation is stemming from our Historic Preservation Advisory Board. It's something that they've been interested in exploring, specifically in having a historic district within Old Town. In terms of the details and location of what that is, that's not been fine-tuned at this point in time. In terms of having that as an outreach item, I know HPAB, or Historic Preservation Advisory Board, has gone out to a few events, kind of coinciding with the same timeline of us kicking this off in June of last year, where they were just having some initial conversations with that. In terms of the efforts in which we were doing, we were actually not going with any projects, concepts, anything in mind. We really wanted the residents to lead the conversation. Now, if a resident did bring up historic preservation efforts, whether that's a land use district or incentive programs for curb appeal or upkeep, we did explore those conversations further. However, we never went out intentionally trying to get them to talk about specific topics. That way we could really truly understand the life impacts and what we needed to kind of address on our own through their voices themselves. So short answer, we didn't necessarily talk about it, but we do know historic preservation of some sort is a tool or a key aspect that we want to continue to explore with the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Then expanding on the 2 Old Towns, part of the projects to maybe bring it together. I don't know where it's at, but Linear Park was a conversation, and I know it's expensive, and there's a lot of other expensive parks. Do you know anything about that?
In terms of the items that are going on, I do believe our Parks Department is exploring irrigation for trees at Linear Park. Don't quote me on that if they're not here, but I believe that is what I have heard. In terms of the other actionable items that I know some of our advisory boards have presented on, I'm not sure if those have been explored any further. However, we did hear from the community that Linear Park needs some addressing of some sort. So they would like to see some activations, whether that's community gardens, just having more tree line or trees along the walking path for shade. That is, like you said, that is a big and expensive project if something were to happen. So I think for understanding what that looks like, it requires for us to go out and have more in-depth conversations, as well as partnering with other departments to make sure there's feasibility in mind and practicality as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns.
Thanks, Josh, for the presentation. I appreciate the update. Going back to the slide with the UDC kind of bullets and the goals, wondering how the process to replace the affordable housing ordinance might fit into this. I see it kind of elements with this. It talks about diverse housing options and consistency with state law specifically. I know one of the issues had been the incentives that had been in the initial iteration of that ordinance and how that might be streamlined or kind of included, I guess, to still provide that incentive. Is that still part of the goals with this?
I will say we are working with or are partnered with the Regional Housing Partnership and understanding what can we do as a region collectively, but as well as there is consultants from the state working on understanding what our requirement is to be in alignment with the with state's requirements by the end of this year. So we are actively having those conversations, as well as we'll be having a joint study session on that topic here on April 7th, I believe, where we're hoping to bring that for a deeper conversation. But I do think there is overlap of how that could fit or play into the UDC update specifically.
And second question, I guess, is regarding like I know the focus on residential medium specifically. Is there any thought of including limitations of use similar to, say, the application that we might be talking about here later, that has a pretty comprehensive list of exclusions as opposed to some generalized, or is that still going to stay with the kind of PD agreement?
I think that would still, if I'm understanding correctly, I believe the answer would still fall with the PD agreements in this instance. However, I guess circling back to land use as a reminder, it's more of just a visionary item. It's not your regulatory tool to limit use. So it really, I don't know that would be the most appropriate location for that conversation. I think it would be more in your UDC update in terms of aligning with your zoning as well. But
Okay, because it seemed like, I guess, the focus of the residential medium low is the density of the units
correct, yeah.
specifically, and that's it. That's the only
Primarily,
differentiation.
yeah. And we just know from the built environment what housing typology is typically going to fit within that density as well. So based on the conversation from council, there was some concerns that the medium density range as it is within the comp plan now offered a larger spread than what was desired in terms of housing typology. So whether it's duplexes to a quadplex, for example. Maybe that's not the best example, but a quadplex could exist on that residential medium high versus a duplex may be more appropriate in some of these more dense areas, but maybe less qualified in terms of service needs. So that's where that residential medium would come into play in providing different built environments.
It's I guess it just strikes me as it's a bit more getting into like the site plan phase later as opposed to the designation for land use now, if we're kind of trying to box in the unit density.
That's a good point. And I think that's something we'll definitely need to be cognizant of when we're doing this research, as well as bringing it back to the community. And that's conversations we'll want to have with you all as well to hear that feedback, because you do raise a solid point there that could put it into a strange predicament.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Behan.
On the community building blocks, what's kind of the intent, I guess, of the context for sensitive design? What are we trying to promote, I guess, with this? And since we're running out of land, what is this going to do, I guess, for the continuity of, I guess, the brand or the identity of Erie?
Yeah, so specifically with the community building blocks chapter and our focus on trying to address some of the community or context sensitive design elements really stems into the conversations where we hear there's concerns of abutting uses. So for instance, having residential next to commercial property, while it may make sense visually, there is concerns, landscape buffering, sound buffering, lighting barriers, things like that, that we do have addressed within this chapter or throughout the comprehensive plan. However, we've heard concerns, from the community as well as from council and other conversations that there could use a little bit more emphasis of that desire of protecting abutting uses while still promoting that desire for more commercial and retail needs or mixing of housing typology, and still trying to serve the community desires overall, recognizing that we do have a very limited amount of land that's still developable within the community.
Thank you.
That was basically my question. So with the community building blocks, additional policies, it's more just like implementation of like preserving agricultural character, like more just getting more specific. Is that what?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So each of these are goals within the comprehensive plan, that
Right.
specific chapter. We do have a range of policies that exist under each one of them. However, we have experienced even through our own reviews of applications and other conversations that we could use a little more emphasis in some areas.
Okay.
And this would be an opportunity for us to deeper dive into that and potentially bring those back as an amendment item for you all in the future.
Okay. Thank you. All good, boss.
Is that all you had? Wrap back around, Commissioner Salish, anymore?
Of course.
Yep.
Okay, so you on slide 3 identified, looks like 3 parcels. Just out of curiosity, the one that is Old Town, actually, let me clarify. When we're looking at that map, everything essentially in yellow is one of those that doesn't have, is undeveloped or not entitled parcels, correct?
Correct. The ones that are circled. Anything in yellow on this map represents all of the parcels that fit specifically under that residential medium category as the built environment shows it as well.
Okay, and then there's that parcel that's right near the RTD line between Briggs and County Line. Is that currently OTR PLI, like splits the 2 zoning classes over there? That property?
Yes.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, what do you mean?
Old Town Residential and Public Lands and Institutions.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so that's a unique one.
The dark green is the public lands and institutions because it's part of that open space tract
Okay.
on the map. It's kind of hard to see it in the scale.
Have we, I know we went through a massive exercise while drafting this. Have we gone through and identified all parcels that are undeveloped or not entitled? Okay.
Correct.
Because there's a lot on, not on this map. I would assume that this is just specific to the residential medium aspect.
Yep.
Okay.
Isn't there a map in the comprehensive?
Yes.
There's, in the comprehensive plan, there's a map with all the properties that are not annexed into your.
Annexed but not developed.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yep.
don't, I just remember reviewing one. like
Yeah.
that, so
It is in the
I think
plan.
it's, yeah.
Okay, and then when we, for the UDC updates, obviously there's the ones that have come front and center since this has been adopted or went to public hearings. Are we also going to be codifying some of the conceptual design policies to make it so that those stick in terms of our UDC? So we have this idea of, a walkable community. Do we then have it so that the UDC is actually saying it has to be a walkable community, or, something to that effect? Is that what we envision for these UDC updates, or is it the hard numbers, those things that we know we can, those are the ones that we're going to hit, or are we planning on other ones that are more, I don't want to say abstract, but abstract?
So we don't quite know how, we'll structure the UDC at this point, but I think what you're potentially thinking about are character areas and how those might have different districts that are within them or that make those areas up. And so they may have, as a result, numbers, standards that relate to the type of character you want to achieve. So in a walkable area, you may have, you may discourage or not allow front-facing garages. You might want to have alley-loaded product and a focus on the pedestrian environment, or if it's residential, or you might have 0 lot line setbacks in a commercial area, or so those types of goals that the area might want to achieve, like walkability, will have to be translated into standards.
Chair, that's 2. You want me to keep running, or you want to run through the line again?
Let's run through the line again. I'd like to finish this agenda item by 7:15. Yep. So, you need more, Commissioner Booth?
I'm set.
Just a small comment from me on the Old Town. You mentioned there was like the dumpster day thing. Is potentially working with sustainability and integrating that with like the cleanup days?
Yeah, I think that's this is something we've seen in other municipalities where the service provider for the trash was able to provide a dumpster for a period of 4 hours on a Saturday within the neighborhood to allow for the opportunity for people who may not be able to get items within their yard or inside their house and get rid of them and take them to the landfill. They may have a better access to have that done in their community. But with that we want to make sure we're also working with our town departments, specifically sustainability, as they do a lot of these efforts already, and hopefully be able to either provide potential of composting days, recyclable days, or even dumpster days specifically within Old Town to really serve the needs of our aging demographic or individuals who might not have access to transportation.
And then last, more of a comment, looking forward to the UDC update. So should be good adventure. Anything else? Commissioner Burns, Mahan, Dreckman, Commissioner Sawas, you got just under 10 minutes.
Okay, we should be quick. Okay. Old Town Briggs, possibility of the subplan. So 3 items. With the creation of Town Center, there's been a concern that will become the new downtown, and basically leave Old Town in the dust. Was that one of the concepts that was discussed, or was that brought up in your conversations?
I would say there was a few instances where the community members did bring up Town Center, but more as seeing Town Center as an extension, as Old Town themselves, rather than seeing it as a potential of the life and action that's happening currently moving. That wasn't necessarily something that I did hear. If anything, what we did hear is the desire to want to see the wealth of attention and attraction to spread elsewhere, to be part of the community as a whole as well. But really, they saw Town Center as an asset of being able to serve their needs and wants within close proximity. So in terms of it being a concern that Old Town will lose its attention, that wasn't really something that rose to the top with the community members that we discussed with. But we do want to be cognizant of that as well, and making sure that we're not detracting from one piece of the community from another when it is developed.
Gotcha. Okay. So in terms of the future of the Old Town area, we're seeing redevelopment occur. We have 105 Wells. We have the property that is proposed across or next door to the post office, and then the Paripi building. We know that there is going to be more revitalization. There have been conversations about some of the businesses on Briggs changing look, adding stories, those kinds of things. Has there been a thought into a plan of what that could be in the future or what we're seeing that move towards? Because there's been conversations on the council side of a natural progression along Briggs one day. And again, we're looking comp plan, 20, 30 years out, which 20, 30 years out, very possible. So has that been something that has been discussed or looked into as part of this potential subplan?
Yeah, so that would be included, or that discussion or focus would be included in what we might refer to as a neighborhood plan or sub-area plan, specifically for Old Town. I don't want to say set in stone that all of these topics would be a part of the discussion. A lot of this will be discovered through further conversations with the URA, the BID, downtown residents as well. But a good way of considering a neighborhood plan is thinking of it as a miniature comprehensive plan. It allows for us to address transportation, it allows for housing needs, economic development, and get a little bit more specific in the details of needs. Again, in alignment still with the comprehensive plan, as it would most likely be adopted as assisting plan to that as well. But that economic, that revitalization, that vitality piece would exist in that more comprehensive neighborhood plan focus. When that will happen, that's part of our process that we're going to be going through here as we try to do these more incremental steps to build up to that bigger conversation, because that requires a lot of community input. And again, we want to make sure that we have as much transparency and rapport going into the process so that the outcome is truly as representative of the community as possible.
Thank you. And then the last question. So there's obviously been conversations about the Page property, about what this is going to become. What are the plans for making this comp plan a living document? We are now a year and a half or so since it's been approved. The authority of the creation and approval has shifted to the council. What is now, at what increments are we going to be making updates? At what points are we going to be saying, hey, we a year and a half ago drafted this, but we really think we want to take another pass at it? What does the process look like? Is it entailed within this process that we're going to be going through with this consultant? Because if we're going to codify things and we want to come back to things, we don't want to have it so it's, well, we're going to do it now, but we're immediately going to come back to it because we've done that once and it just took a lot of time and effort and money. And then the other side of this is the comprehensive plan future land use zoning map. We used to have, or we still have, an application for amendments to that future land use zoning map. However, back in 2021, the former town attorney said we are no longer going to be making any amendments to the future land use zoning map, which it used to be. That's how you started the process. You started there, and then you went to rezoning. Are we at a point where we have that process settled now? And I know I keep looking that way too, because obviously we've shifted now town attorneys. But again, Page property, if that changes to something otherwise, what is the process to update the comp plan in those situations?
Josh, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I'm going to lean on Sarah for that one. So, thank you.
Yeah, well, some of that came in to play before, Josh, even before we even had a strategic planning group within the town. So our previous comprehensive plan didn't quite have the legal language that we were happy with in terms of being able to update it. And the update to the comp plan does set forth a process for updates to it. So we can go back and update the plan the land use plan that's in it. So just to clarify, it is the land use plan that is in the comprehensive plan is the visionary land use plan, and then zoning is separate. So as you mentioned, it's a two-step process. It's ideal to have your comprehensive plan align with your zoning code. And so now we are at that point where we are able to do that. So while our ideal is to have the comp plan be a living document, usually that means we're updating it pretty decently every 5 to 7 years. We're going through evaluating the land use, seeing if there are policies that need to be updated, et cetera. So that's our general cadence. Right now, through direction from the town council, we are doing a minor update. And I think that's, that does happen, right? We don't have any limitations on how often we can update our comp plan. Sometimes communities do set limitations. They might want to do it once a year, 4 times a year, et cetera. At this point, it's not so common that we're having to limit it. And we think it's reasonable to be asked to look at an update. And I can't imagine this will be the last within the next few years. We may have Page property, we may have some other property, and some applicant coming in wanting to ask the town council and the planning commission to reevaluate the vision there.
Thank you, and Chair, I apologize, 2 minutes over. That's all.
We do what we can.
It's Sarah's fault.
Talk about it.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it.
Our second item is 2026-100, public hearing, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Erie recommending approval of the Canyon Creek Plan Development Amendment Number 11. Before we start this one, as a part of this, we need to close agenda item 2026-1 from our January 7th, 2026 meeting. We continued that item to a date certain of today. Due to changes that we proposed at the January 7th meeting, staff and legal determined that a new public hearing was required. As a result, new notices were published, and the public has been afforded another opportunity to provide public comment on the application. Please note that the comments and discussion from agenda item 2026-1 will be a part of the public record for this item and can be referenced from the meeting minutes. Without objection, I'll close item 2026-1 and we'll continue through this item 2026-100. No objection. The time is now 7:18 p.m. and I'm opening the public hearing. I'll turn it over to staff and then applicant for presentation.
Thank you, Commission. So yeah, back before you this evening is the Canyon Creek PD Amendment Number 11. I suppose I'll try to go a little faster through some of these upfront slides and then focus more on what's changed since the last time you saw this application. But just to jog everyone's memory, this request this evening is for a PD amendment. Following a recommendation from Planning Commission, this application would still need to go to Town Council for a final decision. And then we still would be looking at site plan and plat applications before any development could occur. The property is at the southwest corner of Erie Parkway, southeast corner of Erie Parkway and Meller. And it is currently in the Canyon Creek PD, designated for residential and daycare uses at this time. And the comp plan, we were just talking about residential medium. Comp plan does designate this as residential medium, but of course our comp plan also lists secondary uses that go along with each of these categories, and neighborhood commercial is one of those secondary uses that's anticipated. And as we talked about last time, there are a number of specific goals in the comp plan that staff found were related pretty specifically to this proposal here. So thinking about activity centers in each neighborhood, encouraging infill development, and then trying to cultivate a mix of local, unique, and creative businesses. Just a little bit more context of the site, so you can see the Canyon Creek residential surrounds the east and south side of this property, and it does benefit from a traffic signal right here at Miller and Erie Parkway. And there's a fair amount of infrastructure in already, so the sidewalk and curb and gutter are in, the water line and sewer line is in as well, and stormwater infrastructure that this would tie into. So now I'll get into the more specifics of the proposal and sort of what's changed since we last saw it. I did want to recap the neighborhood meeting that occurred back in December. This is sort of an abbreviated list. Some of the concerns were buffering, and more specifically, the impact of lights, privacy from the homes or for the homes adjacent, landscaping, and perhaps using that as screening between the two uses, the commercial and residential. Definitely some concern about uncertainty over future uses and how those future uses would be compatible with the residential. And then also pedestrian safety, being that this is on a pedestrian route and you might have students or other types of pedestrians as well. And then at our last Planning Commission hearing on January 7th, a lot of the same concerns came up, and or some of the same ones came up, and so we left that with some direction from Planning Commission to look into some specific things. So one was parking out here, because the parking requirements we identified were maybe not consistent with the idea of this being more of a neighborhood walkable oriented type center. The character of what the setback was going to look like between commercial development and residential, and being sure that that actually functioned as a landscaping buffer and wouldn't also include things like parking lot or drive aisles, those sorts of things. Again, we talked about uncertainty around future uses, and one of the concerns was that the use table as it was presented in the PD amendment on January 7th, if you remember, had a list of things that weren't allowed, but wasn't particularly specific about things that were allowed. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple slides. And then building height, there was some concern about the building height and whether that was really compatible with the neighborhood. So there was a request to lower that from 35 feet to 25 feet. And so back to the uses. So that was a good comment. And what I think the direction from Planning Commission was that it would be more helpful to have in this PD a more comprehensive list of our uses. So what's now included on the PD amendment document itself is actually our full land use table from the UDC. And so line by line, the base that was started with was the CC zoning, and then it's more restrictive than the CC. So certain things were moved to either special review use or not permitted. In particular, like the drive-throughs that we had talked about last time as being something that was not consistent with the idea of sort of a neighborhood center. So this, again, is sort of an abbreviated list. You'll see the full list on the PD amendment itself, but examples of uses that would be allowed by right are, again, daycare, retail uses, bank, office, restaurant, pharmacy. We use the term commercial amusement indoor to refer to things like a gym or a fitness center, urgent care, medical office, personal services. Those would be uses allowed by right, and then things that are specifically prohibited. This was also a similar list to what we had on the last version, but no auto repair, no bingo parlor, if such a thing still exists, no car wash, cemetery, crematorium, funeral home, RV storage, light industrial, pawnbroker. I guess I won't go through the whole list, but drive-through uses, nightclub, sexually oriented businesses, marijuana businesses, those would all be prohibited uses. And these are primarily the same dimensional standards that we saw from last time, with the exception of the height was proposed at a 35-foot height limit in the last version. And what the applicant is now proposing is 25 feet to bring the scale down a little. And then we talked about the parking minimums that didn't seem like they were really aligned with the intent of the uses out here. So we would still enforce a parking maximum, but not the parking minimum. And then getting specific to the required setback, the 20-foot required setback in between the commercial uses and the residential uses must be landscaped. It must include evergreen types of plantings, and it may not include buildings, parking, or driveways, anything like that. And then, of course, we do also have our standard commercial development standards that would apply to this as well, or would apply to any future development here, I should say. And as I mentioned, so any if this zoning were to be approved by, or this zoning amendment would be approved by town council, the next steps would still be a site plan or multiple site plan applications and a minor subdivision plat to consolidate the properties, as today they've been platted out into townhome lots. And we did talk about, I wanted to mention, we did talk about at the last hearing whether we could require, whether we would require future site plan applications to come back to Planning Commission. So that has not been included in the application or in the PD amendment as it exists before you tonight. We want to talk about that a little bit more. I might also call on Kunal to help me and sort of explain it, but my understanding is we couldn't add that actually as a condition of approval, so we can talk about that more for sure. But as we know, this site is of extreme importance to the neighbors, and compatibility is going to be really important here. So we just wanted to list some of the key considerations if this were to move forward, would be thinking about how buildings are arranged and how the site features are arranged to try to minimize offsite impacts, including light, noise, smell, all those sorts of things. And yeah, being sure all that was adequately screened, promoting this as something that's truly walkable, leveraging, I think last time I mentioned there's a bus stop just on the north side of this property on the Erie Parkway frontage. And so we would look at trying to enhance that bus stop to make sure we were utilizing some of this multimodal transportation. And then possibly reviewing operation plans for future users to think about noise and hours of operation and things like that. So with that, staff do find that this application meets or is consistent with the approval criteria in the code and recommend approval with our standard condition to make sure that we capture any necessary technical corrections prior to the hearing at town council. And as Chair Hemphill mentioned, we did treat this as a new separate hearing from the last one. So the applicant went through another round of public notice posting before this meeting. And with that, I believe the applicant also has a few slides to go through.
Hey, good evening. I'm Dominic Schwartz again, representing Emerald Development. And in fact, I think we're just going to cruise through these. The only slide that is updated, and to my understanding that is relevant, is the we didn't even highlight it, but the site drawing as of right now, sort of we've updated the parking spaces, the setback to remove. Originally we had put the 84 parking spaces per city code or city regs, or town regs, pardon me, and remove that setback to be in line with the building setback. So that automatically cut off about 21 spaces. And we're also showing the building height being capped at 25 feet. It is still our intention to have a single-story building, which should come in under that, but that is just sort of a way to kind of add a bit of a buffer. And I think That's roughly about it. Otherwise, that presentation is the same. I'm not sure if you all would like to just discuss the actual changes that we've committed to that were presented with the slides, or you would like me to read that, sort of the introduction that is part of the packet that was submitted.
If you want to read your letter, you can, or after your presentation, we'll be doing public comment before we do any questioning.
Before we do any questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, perhaps it's good for the public for the neighbors to be able to hear what we did change and amend. Okay, so in any event, I just want to thank everyone for letting us come back. We did, again, incorporate everything that we had heard and from the neighbors, from the commission, from everyone to really kind of reflect and make the commitment necessary to hopefully, allow us to move forward in a way that is taking everyone's considerations into consideration. So in any event, basically, we wanted to be thoughtful about these commitments and how we wrote them out. The plan development standards will be recorded and will run with the land in perpetuity. Our goal is to address today's concerns while preserving a reasonable level of flexibility so the property can serve the neighborhood over time and future residents can still participate in what comes next. We believe the best outcome from putting firm design and compatibility guardrails in the PD, then using special review and site plan conditions to address tenant-specific operational topics when they are known and can be evaluated with real information. So some of the amendments that we made, so the parking standard, we revised the PD to eliminate any minimum parking requirement within the plan development while leaving intact the town's UDC parking maximum framework. This preserves the town's upper cap on parking while allowing the site plan to right-size parking, reduce paved area, and allocate space to landscaping and pedestrian circulation. As far as the residential setback and buffer, we revised the PD to clarify that the minimum setback adjacent to any residential zone district is a landscape buffer area that must include evergreen shrubs and trees and may include fences, site walls, and additional plantings. I don't know why. Pardon me. We also revised the PD to prohibit the following within that minimum buffer: parking and vehicle stalls, drive lanes and circulation aisles, trash and recycling receptacles or enclosures, signage, and light fixtures. This makes the residential edge a true landscape and screening zone rather than a functional service zone. For the land use table and prohibited uses, we revised the PD permitted use framework to include a clearer, more complete land use table that mirrors the town's UDC use classification format so it is straightforward for the public and staff to administer. The intent is to remove ambiguity and ensure the plan development standards themselves establish the tenanting guardrails. As far as the building height and separation, we revised the PD to reduce the maximum allowed building height consistent with the Commission's preference for a lower scale form adjacent to residential. We also added a minimum 5-foot building separation standard. This improves the compatibility and aligns with common life safety and maintenance expectations. As far as future site plan review, we kind of requested to leave this open because we're incorporating, the idea is that we're incorporating these specific guardrails into the PD amendment, which to my understanding is a legally binding document and sort of so having to necessarily come back to commission at this point is cumbersome and feels somewhat excessive given the amount of opportunities the public has had to actually come back and comment. So given the prior opportunities for public participation, adding this step feels like it's going to cause more delay and further costs. And then as far as operating and operating hours, we acknowledge the concerns raised regarding operating hours and late night impacts. We share the goal of preventing adverse impacts to neighboring homes, particularly related to noise, lighting, and outdoor activity. So as part of an enforceable and practical approach, we want to keep the PD focused on clear use and design guardrails that shape what gets built, use special review and site plan conditions for operational topics like outdoor activity hours when a specific tenant or use is proposed and the town and the public can evaluate real details. For any tenant or use proposing outdoor seating, outdoor events, or amplified sound, the tenant improvement application submitted during the permit process will identify potential issues that may not align with the character of the neighborhood and continue to rely on and comply with the existing town performance standards for noise and lighting with additional conditions applied where needed based on the specific use and site plan. Basically, we believe this approach answers the neighborhood concern, keeps public involvement in place, and gives the town meaningful tools to manage impacts without guessing today about future tenants. So in closing, we appreciate the Commission's direction and the neighborhood's engagement. We have incorporated substantive changes into the PD standards and exhibits, and we are committed to continued coordination with staff and the community as the project hopefully advances. And that's what I got.
Thank you for your presentation. Time is now 7:35 p.m. Where are we? And we go to public testimony, and I believe we have people in the waiting room and signed up, so let me go by.
We have 4 people in the virtual waiting room, 2 of which have signed up on the sheet. So I'm going to start out with,
Well, let me do my script first, and then we'll do the.
please do.
So, public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. When you are called upon, you are required to state your name and place of residence for the record. If you are appearing on behalf of a person or organization, please provide the name and place of residence of the person or organization you are representing. Public comment is not an interactive question and answer forum, but rather a time for you to state your comments on a particular item or issue, this item. You will be given an audible warning when you have 20 seconds remaining. At the 3-minute mark, the light will turn red for in person, and we will ask that you finish your final sentence. If you are giving comments virtually, we'll ask that you wrap up and mute your microphone. You may resume watching the meeting or disconnect at that time. And I'd like to start with in-person and then virtual.
Oh, you like to start with in-person first?
Yeah.
Okay. In-person first, we have Chris Joseph.
Please come up to the item here. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, my name is Chris Joseph. I live at 536 Munoz Court in Erie. I've been a resident of Erie for over 20 years and lived at that residence. I'm here to express my opposition to this change in zoning. A little history of this. When I first moved in, it was zoned as a daycare. It went to auction, and a local resident was outbid for this property that they wanted to build a daycare center by someone else. Then years later, this new group wanted to change the zoning. That's when it became mixed as well. And now here we are again trying to change the zoning of this property for a developer. There's not enough room on this site for what's being proposed. There's no trash cans, there's no dumpsters, there's no grease traps. If there's a restaurant in their drawing, a lot of that's omitted. It's just built to look pretty right now. It puts retail directly in the backyards of established Erie's residents. Mellor Street cannot handle the additional traffic. It's a main walkway to Red Hawk Elementary School. Our children walk there. And also with all the development, there's going to be more traffic on Mellor and Austin already. So adding this additional will put more traffic in this neighborhood. It's in the middle of this established neighborhood. The ingress and the egress of this drawing goes directly into someone's backyard. Nighttime headlights are going to shine into neighborhoods, backyards, and houses. The trees, they're not enough to mitigate. They won't even impact that in the slightest. I mean, they're going to take 10 years to grow. The additional needs of this property, such as deliveries, trash service, rooftop HVAC units, makeup air, exhaust fans, grease traps, all this is going to cause noise. And there's just not enough room to buffer that between the residents. Businesses are going to have employee parking. Employee parking becomes employee break area, employee smoking area, so they're going to be smoking up against residential houses. And the lights are going to cause light pollution for the neighbors. Dumpsters, there'll be smells, there'll be pests. It's going to be hard for residents to enjoy their backyards, to go out and sit in their backyard and just relax. I think it would be hard to leave windows open as well. The noise of a restaurant, all these things, it's just not right for that spot. And additionally, it'll increase crime in the area. So I think the residents very near this property, in conclusion, I guess, should not be hurt financially and have their enjoyment of their properties diminished because of a bad investment made by a developer or a property owner. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Who do we have next?
We have no more in-person signed up for this item. Oh,
okay.
Could you come up and state your name, please?
I'm Ryan Durfee. I live at 601 North Bashir Court. I live
directly behind, adjacent to the entrance to the new site. Do you have the pictures that you showed earlier of the site?
This isn't interactive, just.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Apologies. I'm going to echo what the other neighbor just said. I went around over the past few weekends and talked to all the neighbors that ring the property, and every single one of them was aligned that they were against this, and all for the same exact reasons that you just heard. This is not only a massive change in traffic, you're going from a daycare center that might have 60 cars a day coming and going to retail site that at 17,000 square feet, you can run the basic numbers. In order to make the math work to support that much retail space, you need at least 600 cars a day on average. That's average. That's not like high. And that's just based on rough math of what, like penciling out like the average ticket size and what it takes to support retail in this area. So you're going from roughly 60 cars a day to 600 cars a day. Every single house along this property sits up high. Our main floors are all 6 feet above grade, which means our view is 12 feet above grade. Those little trees, like he said, will not grow in for 10 years. And even then, you're not going to buffer 600 cars a day plus all the people coming and going every single day and all the noise that comes from that. We all bought into this neighborhood understanding that this would be a daycare or residential, which we were all very comfortable with. And I frankly wouldn't object if you put, 2 or 3 shops up on the corner away from everything else and a little bit of parking up on the corner. Wouldn't object to that at all. But you've got 600 cars a day that need to go in and out of that egress right behind my house, and they're going to be parking and shining their headlights and talking and enjoying their space right behind all the neighbors. I didn't find one single neighbor that rings that entire space that felt otherwise. I'll be sending a formal letter to you all this evening or this weekend with the email addresses of all the folks that I talked to and all that supported it. Again, I hate to be the NIMBY guy. I used to be in real estate development, but this is really a developer saying we just want more money. I don't believe that this deal doesn't pencil as multifamily. I believe that maybe either the developer is paid too much and needs to acknowledge they need to take a loss in this real estate market, or the developer is just asking for more money. Like, give me a bigger, give me more density, give me more traffic. I can make more money off this. That shouldn't be the town's problem, and it shouldn't be the burden of the neighbors to take on that lowered property value just because of a developer is seeking additional funds. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like we're going to virtual next, or we have one more. Yeah, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Ray Miller, 1672 Bain Drive. We've lived there for about 12 or 13 years, and the makeup of our neighborhood has changed incredibly. There's so many young kids right now. Babies, the past 5 years, I can't even count how many babies were born in our neighborhood. So my concerns are basically that introducing a commercial building into a neighborhood setting will inevitably change the traffic patterns. Based on well-documented planning outcomes, we can expect major impacts because of increased traffic volume, more turning movements, and higher average speeds. More cars mean more conflict points, especially at driveways, intersections. Increased turning movements are particularly dangerous because they're one of the leading causes of pedestrian and cyclic collisions. I'm sure we don't have to remind everybody that the past week we've had some issues with pedestrians being injured, and in one case, killed. So when traffic volume rises, drivers also tend to accelerate between stops, which raises speeds and significantly increases the severity of injuries, which when crashes occur, even a small increase in speed can dramatically rise the risk of fatality for pedestrians. Neighborhood streets are designed primarily for local access, safety, not for commercial traffic demand. Bringing commercial activity into the environment increases exposure for people walking, biking, and children playing nearby. So I urge the committee to carefully consider whether the existing street design can safely accommodate these changes, and if not, to require meaningful traffic calming and safety measures before approving any development. This risk is being borne by the residents and not the developer, and public safety must remain our top priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? Let's move to virtual, please.
We have 4 people in the virtual waiting room, 2 of which have signed up. First person who signed up is Jennifer Berry. And you need to unmute Miss Berry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Jennifer Berry. I'm at 544 Munoz Court, Erie, Colorado. And my main concern is it is going to be a lot of traffic, and there are a lot of kids across the street that go to that elementary school. I was watching them from my back porch. I don't have children, but just watching the amount that were going to school and coming back from school, and they come in like waves. So it's hard to like really time when they come. And I'm really concerned about the children crossing the street and then adding traffic to that is already there. I'm also concerned with possible crime if these buildings were to stay vacant for a while. It seems that we do have other stuff that's going up right down the street, and so these buildings may remain vacant, and then that could lead to crime coming into my backyard. And the buffer, it looks like that was taken care of from the last meeting. So I do appreciate that, because I am one of the yards that is like will be right on that parcel of land. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next person signed up virtually is Jeremy Tieber. Please unmute.
Hi there, my name is Jeremy Tiber. I'm an Erie, Colorado resident, and I just started a timer, so I'm not going to go over. I was born and raised in Colorado, and I've lived in Erie for 18 and a half years, 18 of which have been in North Bashir Court on a house that I own. I've seen a lot of growth in Erie, and I'm happy to see it still growing. So, I'm not opposed to growth, and all this sounds really good in theory, and I appreciate the efforts that you guys are trying to do, and even, the new case that has been presented here with more setbacks and overhangs, but I just don't think that we're there yet. I want to echo again the sentiment that people have already said, that that you guys said last time, that we don't really want to have this impact the housing. We're worried about trucks and lights and late night deliveries and trash. But when I see the new uses that are allowed that were presented here earlier, there's restaurants that are allowed, urgent care is allowed. Those are late night businesses. Those aren't minimal impact businesses. So even though you're making strides and excluding things like sexually oriented businesses, restaurants and urgent cares are giant impacts to a neighborhood, especially with hours of use. And also, when you eliminate parking minimums, where are they going to park when it's full? Is that going to overflow into our neighborhoods? But one of the biggest things that I'm really worried about, because I have 2 kids in elementary school, and the elementary school that's down the road on Meller isn't on a bus route. So our kids don't have bus access to that school because we're so close. We're expected to walk or bike. And as was said earlier, kids go in waves past that lot. And, when kids are walking by, they're in incredible danger of getting hit from people pulling in and out of a lot like that, especially if there's more traffic in that intersection. But then I look at this on a whole, I'm trying to understand why we want to put this here. Again, there's so much commercial that's going in Erie Town Center just blocks away. Why are we putting this here? If you're saying, you earlier said there's minimal areas for housing that are already here that have been set for housing, you're taking more housing away. You took, in the plots that I've seen on Erie Town Center, you took retail away from there to put in more housing. I don't understand where you're trying to put this retail here when there's empty fields blocks southeast of this area, just empty fields where we could put all this stuff in. We're not out of space for commercial, but this is the wrong spot for it. It's going to increase crime. It's increasing noise and light pollution. We've already been lied to several times about what's going in on this lot. The town has been held hostage by these developers that hold this lot hostage in hopes that you guys are going to change your mind and bend to their will. And what we're asking for is for you not to do that in this case, to hold what it was supposed to be. Somebody wanted it to be a daycare. They tried to be it to be a daycare, and it got held hostage by a developer. Please keep this as a neighborhood. You wouldn't want this in your backyard, and we don't either. And we're excited to have the retail that we're going to have blocks away that we can already walk to.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
There are two more guests virtually. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak. Seeing no hands raised.
No final comment? Okay. Time is now 7:50 p.m. Would applicant and staff like to make a response to any commissions before we go to question, or any of the comments before we go to questions? Or do you just want to go to questions?
I might just add for clarification where this site plan that's up right now is not being approved tonight. So we are only, well, nothing's getting approved tonight because Planning Commission makes a recommendation, but the only application that's in front of Planning Commission tonight is the zoning. So this site plan would not be approved tonight by any means. Staff would be going through or the applicant would need to go through an entire separate process with the staff to do a site plan application. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not approving tonight what's on the screen right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that this is not a site plan. This is a drawing.
Yep. So we'll move to commissioner questions. Again, 2 questions. We're running a little late, so try to be quick and go back around. So I'll start with Commissioner Dreckman.
Okay, just based on the feedback we've gotten from residents, can you explain, like quickly, like the difference between zoning and a plan development? Because I think zoning is a lot harder to change, right, within a so can you just explain maybe the difference between those and how Erie uses them?
Yeah, so zoning sort of sets out the broad guidelines for development. So that's what we use to indicate whether this area is for commercial or residential or some kind of mix of uses. But generally at that stage, we're not picking a specific use and saying this is the use that's going to go right here. I know PDs sometimes do get that specific, but generally that comes as a sort of a menu of options of these are potential uses that could come here. And in particular, that's sort of the early stage. And a lot of times developers don't know for sure what the specific end user is going to be. And so that's why they try to build in a little bit of flexibility of an office or a restaurant or that sort of thing. And so then, but it does memorialize the rules for development. So after that fact, or after a zoning package or a zoning amendment is approved, things like setbacks are established, so those can't be changed later on. However, once we really get into the fine-tune sort of development of the site and think about what the building looks like and where the parking is going, what the landscaping looks like, that all is a separate, more detailed process that we get into with site plan and plat application. And that's when we look to make sure that the development is indeed consistent with all of those development rules that we'd established through zoning. I know that was probably kind of all over the place answer. But
That's good, yeah. And then my second question would be if we recommended approval and then and then it was approved and then they came back with a site plan, would a traffic study be required then?
Absolutely, yeah. So that would be or one of the submittal requirements that we would need with a site plan and plat application. So at this point, you'll notice that in the application there isn't a lot of detail on traffic generation, and that's because there's at this point still a question over what specific uses would be going here. Because when we do when an applicant provides us a traffic study, they need to actually calculate X square footage of retail results in this many projected car trip generation, that sort of thing. So we definitely would be reviewing that in detail when we get to site plan and plat.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Commissioner Bayham.
Thank you for the application. To the applicant, can you explain to me in a little bit more detail the impact on the adjacent neighbors, in your opinion? Is this going to be a benefit to them as far as access to say, a storefront that they actually occupy, or is this just a resource or community amenity that everybody can enjoy?
I think if it's done properly, the idea is that it is a neighborhood walkable store,
Okay.
community neighborhood store. Is it a resource for the greater community? Absolutely. You can't deny that. But that's part of the reason of cutting back the parking, trying to hopefully incorporate walkable paths through the area, through the site for the children going to and from school or bikers. All of that is to try and bring it together so that it is something that really is valued. And I know that might not seem, attainable in this moment, but it is something we are striving for.
Well, it's a little nebulous because you don't know what it is yet.
What's actually going in there?
Yeah. I mean, the
Correct.
site diagram is truly just a diagram. It's an idea that's being flushed out.
Right. It
And
has
you're
to go
trying
through a
to make
comprehensive
it
site
work.
review,
Yeah. So create the vision for me of what the neighbors would see out of this that would create a benefit.
That would create, I'm sorry?
A benefit.
Well, I mean, we are envisioning a one-story, building, so it's not terribly tall. So, just from a visual perspective, we talked about bodega as the corner stores. Might have local, if there are actual local artisans that might actually want to participate in these spaces, it could be hair salon, could be a barber shop, could be a place, could be, the bagel shop. It could be a yoga studio, things that are more focused on pedestrian activity as opposed to people driving from far and wide, is something that I think we see as a real add to the local neighborhood.
Okay. And some of the challenges, I guess, you'll work through with a full site plan. You'll have to account for lost parking, some of the circulation throughout the space, and then deal with utilities and everything else. And
really see if it works. Yes.
Yeah. The zoning is really just a question if this works within the context of the community, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. In your opinion, it does.
I think it will. Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, hearing some of the neighbors' comments on this, there are some challenges with that, and I would like to see maybe a little bit more advancement of addressing that directly. That's kind of the questioning that I've kind of come up with, to build a relationship with the community that surrounds with the neighborhood and help tailor this as a possibility. Because this is going to be a process to help potentially move this in one direction or the other.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I would throw out there right now is that while the prospect of coming back to Planning Commission during or after site review seems cumbersome, I would wholeheartedly embrace another opportunity to take site plan to another community engagement and get that feedback and continue that site review with that feedback.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
Going to kind of beat on a similar topic to Commissioners Bayham and Treckman. I want to acknowledge, I guess, your comment. And yes, the process can be kind of seeming repetitive. The PD amendment is binding in the sense that it establishes the limitations of use, but you have to be aware that because we don't have the specifics, the reason why it was suggested to come to Planning Commission, to come to council again with these steps is we're going to want to know what this is to make sure that we're comfortable as well as the neighborhood with what is actually going to end up going in. And so it's not, the intent is to be on your shoulder the entire time. It is to make sure that, yes, this is comfortable. We established this from the initial hearing was, we're not going to have a traffic study. So I know people are talking about their concern about the extra traffic. It's going to be something here, but we don't know. And so it's hard to say specifically what we would be looking. We can't tell the people who live here. similar to, we don't know exactly what other kind of, I want to use the word pollution, but, we talk about light, smells, noise kind of things might be experienced until we get a better idea. So I think that, yes, I understand it is kind of repetitive going through multiple cycles of this, but there absolutely is a reason for this, especially in the neighborhood, because you can see the concerns. And I think everybody just wants to be comfortable with this. I personally think it's a benefit. I mentioned this in the last meeting as well. I've lived near these kind of commercial kind of centers in the neighborhood. You can walk to, you tend to get these more local businesses. You don't get the kind of franchisee businesses that we're going to probably see more of in town center. There's definitely options there. It can be a benefit, but there's legitimate concerns. And I think that it is up to Ms. Ramella as the manager, whether this does go to either administrative review or ultimately, her call. But I think that this is consistently what we've seen, why we're having these multiple kind of hearings. And it seems like we're beating this into the ground, but yeah, it's to make sure we're not just saying, yeah, have at it, and we'll see what goes in. So I just wanted to kind of, I guess, to acknowledge that part of the statement. I understand the time, but there's absolutely reason for it. So that's
Okay. For staff, you mentioned the legal reason of not putting the site plan on the PD, or a site plan review, no matter what, on the PD. I know if we have over 25,000 square feet of usable space, it requires a public site plan. But what were the legal challenges of not requiring a site plan no matter what?
Yeah, so no matter what, a site plan will be required. But yeah, as you mentioned, currently the UDC specifies that site plans with a gross square footage of less than 25,000 square feet is administrative approval. Over that is automatically kicked to a planning commission approval. And so last time around, we had talked about whether we could sort of do away with that threshold and just say that any subsequent site plan that comes before staff would then also have to come to planning commission for approval. And so the way I understood it is that we were not able to impose that type of restriction on the review in a condition.
Yeah, so pretty much what Harry said. In 10.7.10E, it's pretty clear that the director gets, review and decision, but then, the director has discretion if there's complications, if there's modifications, if there's things that, he or she can't just approve, then it does go to planning commission. So there's still that step, but adding that condition would go against the code. So that's why we removed that condition.
Okay.
But that the director choice would be preserved as that is in our code.
Yeah, they don't just skip site plan, or it doesn't get rubber stamped.
Right.
Yep.
And then this is more of a technical question on the PD document itself. On the January 7th version, there were a lot more pages with a lot more words that I didn't actually go through. And they aren't there in the latest version. Were all of those words captured in the table? Is that what happened here, or they're missing pages?
That was some suggested cleanup originated with staff, just because many of those pages specifically talked about the various residential planning areas, and in order to be more clear about what was changing and what was being specifically allowed for this planning area, we just recommended taking some of those pages out, since they specifically listed design standards for residential development. So that's why it's shorter. And but yeah, all the language that dealt specifically with this planning area is still in here.
Okay. Yeah. Vice Chair Broadus.
Okay. So the issue here to me is mainly the expectations when people moved in. And so my questions are going to be more towards had this been planned at the beginning, how it compares with what's happening now. So one question is things like the buffer between the houses and the development. This, I think, is more for you, Harry. How does it compare to a new development that has mixed use? Is this buffer comparable to what would happen anyway, or is it different?
That's a good question. Yeah. So what this 20-foot buffer that would be required under this proposed PD amendment is greater than what? So if this property today were to develop with townhouses, the way it's been platted out is actually that there would be an alley directly against the east side. So that would be right against the backyards of those homeowners there. If the property today were to develop, I guess it couldn't unless the lots were consolidated, but if it were developed with a daycare, the setback from the residential areas could be 10 feet to an interior lot line. It doesn't distinguish between.
And there's no buffer.
No buffer required.
No buffer, okay.
Today's, yeah.
So in essence, we're putting in a much bigger buffer than would have been had it been, well, let's go, instead of had it been daycare, had it been commercial, like what this is doing now. With the buffer, again, for a new development, where it has, again, mixed use, so it has commercial next to residential. What size buffer would be required today for if everything was new? Does that question make sense?
There are no buffer requirements. That is one of the big issues that we need to fix in the UDC update.
Okay.
For clarification, is 10618H applicable, which requires a minimum 30-foot planting area composed of screening landscaping required when the site is adjacent to a residential zone property?
Can you say the section again? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can we go back and when it's your time for questions?
Yeah, please.
Excuse me. The second question is similar. How does the bus stop that just happened to be there fortuitously, you normally wouldn't have something like that as a requirement for a new development. It just helps to make it more accessible. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, and I suppose at this stage we can't, because any of those sort of offsite improvements that a developer would contribute to would need to be negotiated in a development agreement during the plat stage. I can't say for sure that we could require or that we would get a result of an improved bus station, but I can say that's something staff is interested in asking for in that development agreement.
Yeah, because when I think of other commercial, it just is luck of the draw if there happens to be a bus stop there. And you wouldn't get a new one just because you built this. So, all right, thank you. Those are my two.
Commissioner Booth.
My questions are for staff. On page 7 of your presentation, when it talks about the comprehensive plan, you mention in there E12 the encouraging of infill development. And when I look at that on the comprehensive plan, it kind of refers to residential more than anything commercial. So can you explain how that applies to this application?
I think E.1.2, I think that's more broadly infill anywhere. So any property that just hasn't been developed or is sort of laying vacant that's in the town. I think most of what we have in the town currently is residential, or the vacant property that we have in the town currently. I think for the most part is zoned residential. So there's not a lot of vacant commercial land in Erie because we know the demand is pretty high for that. But I think this is more generally sort of focusing development efforts within previously developed areas in order to be able to benefit from existing infrastructure and not have to invest in extending water lines or extending sewer lines, those kind of things. I think that's sort of the essence of the E.1.2. I don't know if Sarah or Kelly has anything to add to that, but.
I mean, again, so the comprehensive plan really speaks to historic Old Town and then existing neighborhoods. So maybe the comprehensive plan should also, I mean, talk about bringing commercial into those areas potentially. I don't know. My next question was on page 14 when we talked about the permitted uses. I thought I heard you say that a drive-through would not be an allowed use. Is that correct?
Yes. So on the so it's broken out in the land use table that's on the PD amendment. Each specific type of drive-through is called out specifically, so there's no, on that table, there's no just broad drive-through category, but there is restaurant with a drive-through, bank with a drive-through, and I believe pharmacy with a drive-through, and all of those are not permitted.
Perfect. I missed that because those were the three. I'm like, those all three.
The wording
have
was a little different,
drive-thrus.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Salish.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the question. Will there be any outdoor storage, anything to that effect, envisioned for some of these establishments?
No.
Okay, will they have anything outside? Let me rephrase. There were comments about the potential of dumpsters, of grease traps, etc. So first question is, when you look at the property and seeing the landscaping restrictions that are currently there, where would you envision something like this, a trash receptacle or a potential grease trap?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, right now it's hard, like, you know, as the fact that there are no locked in vision for who that tenant exactly is, it's hard to say where that can go. But now that we've taken the setbacks there, I would probably have to go back to our architects and ask that question, like where they might see the dumpster and the recycling, so that it is, you know, as non-invasive as possible.
I mean, I'm not, trying to put the cart before the horse, but when we talk about these different types of establishments that may be there, and we have very stringent restrictions and rules in terms of where they are supposed to go or can't go. So, for instance, they can't go into any of these the buffer areas, right? So the question is, again, this was a concern that was brought up. Where could one of those go in the property? Because generally where you decide you want to put it could bring in additional restrictions and items pertaining to that.
Yeah, I can imagine building a trash enclosure, so something that's enclosed, and so it's not as visible, but at that entrance and egress, right around the corner, taking a couple, 2 to 3 parking spaces potentially, or even further up north towards the retail building, adjacent to it, to carve out a rectangle of sorts that would then allow pickup to be probably a little bit easier for a garbage truck to pick it up that way, and that would be also on the Meller side and not on the neighborhood side of the property.
Okay. Thank you.
But I think we'd probably really look at doing something enclosed.
It requires enclosure.
Okay.
So it would have to be.
Yeah.
So the other item was obviously the headlights coming in and out of. We also have in the UDC fencing and walls. In the BCC, RC, LI, PD, AGH, AP zones, etc., when the land use is adjacent to a residential zone district, you have to have a solid material fence, wall, or combination of earthen berms, fences, walls, etc. When you look at this 30-foot buffer area, are you envisioning a wall just before that? Are you envisioning a wall just after that? Because depending on where these types of things might go, and I know cart before the horse, this isn't the landscape plan, but this is something that needs to be included in the thought process of being able to get this at this location.
We're talking about the east side.
We're talking about
South
the
and east.
south and east sides.
South and east. I would look for that to be on the outside of the landscaping zone.
Okay,
On
so
the east and so further east, further south.
so essentially there is already a fence there. So
Right.
we're talking about two fences that then are parallel to each other?
Well, it depends, I guess, I'm not familiar with the exact code and the height of that fence, the one that we would be required to erect. Perhaps there's a conversation for replacing the existing fence for something higher that might actually be more desirable.
If I remember from the photos there, it's already a 6-foot fence, which is what is the maximum allowed. So staff correct me if I'm wrong, but something like that, we couldn't go higher because we would need to have a variance to go higher. But
Maybe that's something.
Wouldn't these items come up in site plan review?
Sorry?
Wouldn't these items come up in site plan?
They would, except when we're talking about the character of what is going to be coming here, how will those actually be implemented potentially, obviously ideated, if we're going to have a completely different use class that is from what we currently allow in these situations?
Commissioner Sawich, can you give me the code reference that you're referencing?
Specifically 10.6 F7. It's related to landscaping, screening, and fencing, and then fences, hedges, and walls in districts adjacent to residential districts. Now, technically, I would assume this is, or I guess this is PD zoning, so it would be applicable to this provision in the code.
Yeah, so I think sorry, that was loud. We would definitely take a look at this during site plan. I do think, a combination of landscaping, solid walls or fences. You're right. I believe that 6-foot maximum height would apply. It would take a special variance or industrial zoning to allow higher than that. And I think there would need to be some consideration of whether that's creating sort of a dead space in between the residential fence and the commercial fence or wall. But I think that's definitely something we'd want to coordinate on at site plan and figure out how all those things were sort of lining up.
Yeah, and again, I'm bringing this up because, correct me if I'm wrong, yes, that is site plan, that is the landscaping, but those are some of the things that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about a different zoning class that then triggers this additional provision than what we would normally have, where it's medium density next to medium density next to medium density. It's all the same, so it doesn't trigger this provision in here.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's sort of valid discussion around the PD, the provision in this proposed PD that describes sort of what this landscape buffer would look like. So, I think it's valid discussion to sort of think through some of that, and then if there are specific details that could be added in sort of the description of what that landscape buffer looks like, perhaps that's something that could be added before town council.
Matt, too, I'll
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, it's 8:20 right now. We're going to do another round, and then we'll go to deliberation. So Commissioner Dreckman,
I'm good for now, thank you.
Commissioner Bayham,
Harry, tonight, we're just trying to expand the uses that would be allowed on the site for the applicants.
The uses, but also the dimensional standards, so the setbacks, height, and then, this 20-foot landscape buffer.
That's the only question I had.
Thanks.
Commissioner Burns.
Nothing.
Okay. There was a comment about vacancy rates. Do we know roughly our retail vacancy rate in Erie right now?
We have way more demand than we do
So
retail
it's
space.
close to zero on the vacancy.
I don't know offhand.
Or
the specifics.
whatever it is I'm trying to say. It's well utilized.
Yes.
Okay. And then I do hear all the comments about pedestrians. That is something that I want to see. And the traffic studies that get brought up. Are there any, when those occur, are there any provisions or traffic reductions for a more pedestrian focused development? Is there a way to utilize the fact that this is almost so pedestrian friendly that people don't even want to drive there sort of thing, and that will actually reduce traffic? Is that built into the study?
Yeah, when our transportation team works with applicants, again, at site plan or plating stage, they work with them to develop their base assumptions form. And so that would play into, those inputs of expected pedestrian and bicycle traffic. Those would be accounted for.
You're trying to say to have a particular focus on pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, just make it
overemphasize pedestrian traffic.
It's effectively a pedestrian-focused place, and people in cars should feel that they shouldn't drive more than 5 miles an hour because there's children around, and it's obvious that they're around. So I think it is really important. I mean, it's right next to Erie Parkway, which is busy, but it's important.
It's real. Yeah.
So, Vice Chair Broadus.
I guess we have to focus on the fact that this is the zoning and not the site plan. And so we've talked a lot about the traffic studies. Are we expecting much of the traffic to go beyond this parcel into the development? I don't see that happening, but I could be missing something.
I think it's tough for me to comment on without seeing a traffic study, but I do agree. I think it would be, or that's, I guess speculation on my point, or on my part. But
Me too.
It doesn't seem like it would be prone to a lot of cut through traffic.
Yeah, because there's no place really, it seems, to go through. But yeah, I guess that's all my questions for right now.
Commissioner Booth?
I think we got communication from more community input. And one of the questions I had for staff is that something that was asked from the community was about some previous meetings in December and February, some that were canceled, whether public notice procedures were followed, all of that. Can we address some of those questions that came out? I don't know that any meetings were canceled, and I think all of the notices were done.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any cancellations. I think the December meeting was the neighborhood meeting.
Yeah, I think that was the confusion. The December meeting was the neighborhood meeting, not a planning commission meeting.
Okay. And then we did renotice for this
Right.
one. So that includes publishing in the paper, posting at the site, and mailing to those within 500 feet.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to go back to this where we are today for zoning, and then where it goes, and then the site plan. Potentially, this is the last time we will see this come before us. I've heard open. I don't know what open means necessarily to having a site plan come back before us. I don't know that that's really up for, I don't know if that's something that's really up for discussion, but I want to understand that this could be the last time we see this in front of us.
That is correct. So, if this were to be approved by town council, a month from now or whatever, and the applicant were to submit a site plan and plat application, the plat application would be an administrative approval. It would presumably would go to town council on consent agenda for acceptance of a development agreement and possibly utility easements if any of those were moving around. The site plan, we'd be left with the choices that are given to us in the UDC, with the square footage threshold under 25,000 square feet being sort of a default to administrative review. However, the director does always have the opportunity to refer, or I don't know what the correct term is, but refer a case up to Planning Commission for review.
Could I ask one more emphasis question? Once it gets past zoning and it starts getting into those other phases, is it hard to slow down the train?
I don't know exactly. I think yes. I think zoning is where the Planning Commission certainly and Town Council have because those are zoning decisions are always made at public hearing process with Planning Commission and Town Council. I do think that's where they can you as commission and Town Council as the council exercises more power at that stage, I think, whereas administrative applications later on, more of the burden is on staff at that point to ensure that things are being done consistently with our standards and with the feedback that we've heard thus far. But power sort of shifts between staff and elected officials.
Okay, thank you.
Appointed officials, yeah. Sorry.
Commissioner Salish?
Just to clarify, to confirm, in terms of, for staff, 10.6.4, D, E, 8, H. I know, I want to say bingo, right?
No bingo parlors.
That is not applicable to this.
Correct. That's for outdoor storage only.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so for staff, is there any precedent? Are there any other locations where we've had this type of development go into those areas? I know most of these are built as neighborhood mixed use, where it's from the get-go, you have the commercial and you have the residential together. Are there any situations where it was residential and then commercial came later? I know Erie Highlands obviously has that currently going on, but again, that was planned from the very beginning. Is there anything as precedent that we can look to in a situation that is similar to what we're seeing here today for this application?
While it's not exactly the same, we do have adaptive reuse in Old Town, where we do have commercial uses being introduced into residential buildings right next to existing residential. So like the Cellar West along Briggs is an example of a very recent new commercial use within existing residential. It is currently zoned to allow that because of the zoning on Briggs. So that zoning decision was made a while ago to allow for that over time to happen. So that's just off the top of my head. And certainly you're right that in a lot of areas like town center or even some of the developments that have been approved of late, we do have that mix of commercial and residential.
And then when we talk about, Old Town is, the example of what we see, we have specific provisions related to how the character of that lot and the buildings on that lot have to match then the character of the houses around it. It's something like, every 25 feet there must be a split. It must be similar to the actual lots on the adjacent property. I mean, that isn't anything that is related to this. We are simply zoning this as it is. And I know I made this comment last time. It's a blank slate. Basically, anything on this list can go here. We have no restrictions in terms of how these actually have to be set up, how the buildings have to be set up, how they have to generally face. We do have, but more in line with trying to minimize impact on the residential areas. This is basically, here's your postage stamp of area, 30-foot, 20-foot buffer around. As long as it's within that area, it fits within the setbacks, the various distances to the arterials, anything can be built there as long as it's on that list.
Within the bounds of our standards.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I would also specify, I think, in terms of uses, it is a bit of a blank slate that, anything on that list could potentially come. But I would say staff exercise a fair amount of discretion through our commercial design standards that are in the UDC, and those aren't the most comprehensive list, but they do contemplate sort of where buildings and parking are placed. We have a bunch of minimum standards for landscaping and architectural materials and things like that. So it's not fully fair game after that. I think staff can impose, or staff do make sure that it's being consistent with all those design standards as well.
Okay. Those are all.
All right. Thank you. And the time is now 8:32 p.m. and I'm closing the public hearing and into commissioner deliberation. Since it's a little late, let's try to keep this under 10 minutes before we get to a vote. So I'll just open the floor, whoever wants to speak. If we go a little bit over, but again, just be aware of the time, please. Who wants to start? Anyone want to deliberate?
Go for it.
Well, I'll start and then. So one of the things I do appreciate is that the work that went back in 6 weeks. There's been some pretty significant changes. A lot of work on the PD. Because it's just zoning for me. I would like to see it come to. What are we? The Planning Commission. That's right. And understanding that we have that limitation, but I do like the developer open to the public meeting or the neighborhood meeting style of process. So that's what makes sense to me. Anyone else have any comments? Yes, Commissioner Salish.
I know that, first off, thank you. We rarely have a development, an applicant come before us and change their application and what they're proposing as much as was changed in the situation. I know that we threw in the kitchen sink at times and you responded with, here's your faucet, here's the drain. So that really is nice to see. I will say that there's There's going to be other chances for the public to comment on this as things go through, if it is in fact approved. There's a lot to this development that, in concept, it might not actually work in terms of what we're seeing, some of the things that we brought up tonight. Obviously, this is just concept. We have this postage stamp of land, and we have this idea of bringing things. I would say that the biggest thing is trying to make it as most neutral as possible to that location, so that it doesn't impact the residents. Again, if this is approved in the end. For staff, thank you for working with the applicant. Again, I know we threw in the bathtub as well, so thank you for saying, here's your shower. So I appreciate all this. I will say that, I believe I said this last time, this is probably one of many to come in the future where we have infill commercial development, because there are so many locations that are PD, and because there are so many little postages of space available for commercials. So fortunately or unfortunately, depending how things go, you're going to be setting a precedent. So, but I wanted to thank you for your time, and for staffs as well. Thank you.
Also, I echo what you're going to say, because I was going to say something similar, that you're trying to make the best of the situation to work within the constraints that the residents want to have, while at the same point, or at the same time, realizing that other things in the past that have tried to go in here haven't worked. And so the fact that it is zoning and there will be more opportunities, and I don't know how many times a smaller development has been pushed back to the Planning Commission, but that is still a possibility at the discretion of the director. And so basically, thank you. And I want to also thank the residents for what you've been doing and saying. And hopefully you feel you've been heard. No matter which way things go, I think you have been heard, and modifications have been made, and we'll see which way the vote goes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit into what Commissioner Sawich had mentioned. This is kind of, when we talk about walkable neighborhoods, this is the next extension of that. Not having to get in your car and drive all the time. We see this with the Erie Village, that small little commercial thing that's going in the front of that hasn't been built yet, that's approved. I saw a story today in Westerly. There's a market, grocery store, quick foods kind of thing that's also going in there. I think that's really the next step of development here. Commissioner Sawich mentioned that's infill, but this is to get us from not having to drive to Lafayette to go to the store, to go get something to eat, etc. So, hopefully, we're going to try to make it work for everyone, where it's not pain, and that it works for the community as well. That's just my thoughts.
Honestly, I'm torn. I hear the residents' concerns. I see the development as it's presented, and there's potential there too. If we were to look back at the original PD with the daycare as presented, what other accessory uses would have been allowed at that point? And it most likely is the uses that have been listed. So there's an advancement, I guess, there to start for this infill process to occur and gain some traction, because we're going to see more of it, to everybody's point. And that's kind of the rebuilding of the neighborhoods. None of us want to drive. I drive 45 minutes into Denver every day. If I had this in my back door, this would be a huge amenity for me, at least, in gaining back an hour and a half from my life every day. So there's considerations of that. I go both ways on this. This is gonna be extremely tough to kind of justify the concerns of the residents. And I strongly hear the concerns there. Maybe there's some more discussions around the uses that are allowed. Maybe the restriction of operating hours, potentially more professional office areas could be more promoted to help minimize that after 6 o'clock hour and help the immediate residents kind of gain back some of their value of what they see right now. Because the views back to the west are pretty phenomenal if you stand on the east side. So there's considerations there that I would really like to see honed in. And then get into kind of building that community, because everybody's going to get along if this goes forward. And there's got to be some give and take on both sides in order for us to build a community as this kind of goes. So I appreciate everyone's time.
Commissioner Jeckman or Commissioner Booth?
If approved, I'm confident by this point that staff has heard the residents' concerns and will put a ton of weight into the traffic study and the site plan. So I think, that the town is, or the staff is more responsible here at this point, because I think the applicant's done everything they can and, is still running a business. So kind of needs to focus on that. And I think the staff has more of the responsibility at this point. Thanks.
Commissioner Booth?
I would probably echo most of what Commissioner Bayham said. This one also is very tough for me. I happen to live in Erie Commons, so I have a lot of commercial around me. And so there are some benefits to that. I can walk my FedEx package down to Tape and Twine. I can go to Christo's Coffee and walk there, or to Ziggy's, or to my credit union. There are some definite benefits to having some of that around you and that walkability. But there were some legitimate concerns. The traffic, and I know we're not at that stage, that one does have a lot of concern because the in and out of that location is not good. I also think that, is it Meller? Is that the street?
Yes.
I feel like that is a thoroughfare also, to try to get down to Austin, or I think it's Austin. So there's a lot of future things to consider too. And I think for the developer, it would behoove you to be very mindful of what type of establishments go in there. I think it could be a great benefit to the community if it's careful. So I am also very torn.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move. Would someone like to make a motion? And I have a sheet if you want to read it. Commissioner Burns.
We do not have any conditions on this.
That's what I was going to ask.
There's no additional conditions besides, because we've addressed those from the original recommendation. So, motion to approve resolution number P2603, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Erie recommending approval of the Canyon Creek Plan Development Amendment number 11 with conditions. I don't know if
that's important.
Second.
Is that a second from Commissioner Salish? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anybody want to request a roll call vote? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last item is 2026-103, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Erie recommending that our town council reappoint Commissioners Booth and Burns. Time is now 8:44 p.m. I'll just start with some of the comments, and then we'll open the board. We still have commission reports to do. So let's target finishing this one by 9. We'll see how we do. So part of this, as we discussed, is the recommendation. As I've been digging through some pieces, I've gotten some clarifying pieces from, let me just find my email.
The attorney?
Yeah, from how the seats are working. So the way the appointments were set up in 2022 is actually the seats are vacant on May 17th. So there's the commentary about how that works, but just for reference, I think it's clear to me now that the town council will, I think they're planning on continuing the interviews, but then the new commissioners wouldn't be seated until May 17th or May 18th. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's kind of how this will work. We're not going to see, unless someone resigns, a new commission until mid-May, which might actually be after our meeting, so it might be June.
I'll just clarify, unless the ordinance is changed.
Unless the town council passes an ordinance, but typically they would do a resolution for this. So they would have to do an ordinance to reduce terms, would be my guess. So that's for them to work out.
Right.
So, so I just wanted to, I think I've made my point. Anybody who wants to start on other thoughts? I mean, obviously I brought this up. I think I'm in favor of passing it just because I like working with you. So.
Quick question for staff, just to go over why it didn't get passed off to town council. There's an explanation for that, so.
Yeah, and I'll also let Kunal respond as well. But with the conversation that we had during the Planning Commission meeting and through guidance with our legal counsel, we determined there wasn't really a direct path to go to town council with respect to getting permission. Typically with our boards and commissions, if there is some type of communication that wants to be made, it's through resolution or through a letter. Our process is not structured to create specific agenda items for council to approve a communication. So we did talk pretty extensively internally and with our legal counsel over what would that even look like, and we did also convey to council, and actually Chair Hemphill also sent a note to council that there was an intention from Planning Commission to have a resolution of this nature. So we felt that the communication had been had in multiple ways, because we also provided an update through town management to council. So given that we didn't have the structure for it, but we have a good structure for communication between boards and council, we went with what we have. And yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything.
That's nothing to add.
Thank you very much for that. At least that way it's on the record as to what happened. So.
Okay. Commissioner Sausch.
Okay, so let me just ask this. So for staff, you're saying we don't have a clear-cut way in which communications are supposed to occur to council, correct?
No, what I mentioned is we don't have a clear-cut way of having approval of a communication from a board to council, or having council approve a communication. So our standard, we do have a way for communication to happen, and that is typically a resolution that is made within a board, and that's passed on to council as an item on their agenda. That is our mode of communication between the boards, or boards can come and give updates to council that are agendized. In terms of having having council approve a specific communication to even happen. That's not our typical mode. We just have kind of a one-way communication from board to council.
Okay, so there have been requests from planning commissions in the past that have been requested of council. And those have gone to council and they have weighed in. It's not a vote that they're taking, it's, informal straw poll, let's call it, right? And the request was brought to them. We have the advisory board guide, the member guidebook. It says staff obviously can't request, be a direct communique to the council. It's supposed to go through your council liaison. We don't have a council liaison, obviously. In situations where it says, how it notes, it would go to the town manager and town council liaison to evaluate the appropriateness of the request to provide directions of whether staff should proceed, right? Because this is basically, we're trying to add this to our work plan, essentially, when it's not currently listed. We don't have a council liaison. So in the future, how would we get requests to the council? Because guarantee this is not going to be the last time, but this is the first time that I'm hearing a direct request from the planning commission did not make it up to council and made it up to staff and town administration and then got kicked back down with a response when there was a direct request.
I will say that the communication did occur to get to council. There wasn't a two-way communication back though. So council didn't have a straw poll or a communication about that request as a body. We did not agendize that conversation. So that is not something that we typically would do. If it's something that, staff or that planning commission wants council to consider, that we could, again, have a resolution and have that brought to council to weigh in on giving direction. We also have other opportunities like joint study sessions where there can be dialogue. And again, there's also opportunities, in our work plan updates for that to happen. I understand the question about, we don't have a council liaison who would typically, and I haven't seen this happen all that much with this current council or even really with past councils in terms of bringing back dialogue from a board and then having them weigh in and provide direction back through that council liaison back over to the board. That hasn't, in my experience here, been overly formalized with council. But that's something that we can talk to our administrative services and town clerk and just kind of see how that communication might want to change. We are currently looking at our boards and commissions and how our staff, the roles of our staff liaisons, the roles of council liaisons. Literally right now, we are trying to refine that because sometimes it's different with different boards, and this certainly has its, the planning commission has its constraints, and so does our, when we have quasi-judicial considerations and other boards like the historic board, sometimes that communication can be also conflicted if, we have if we're not able to share certain information between the council and that commission or board. So, long story short, I'd want to discuss it more with legal and with our town clerk and see how if there's opportunity to improve communication and our standards for how we do that, certainly happy to look into it and get back to, we can get back to you as a board, but we're also going to be communicating with all of our boards and commissions on our updates to how communication is going to happen and what our roles are.
Yeah, and just to clarify, only legislative, nothing QJ, because quasi-judicial is obviously,
Yes, yeah.
so it would only be legislative. But, segueing into this, we're going to have a conversation in a moment about roles and responsibilities. And when we were talking about this item, about bringing it forward, I said, I don't know how I would feel if I was on the other side receiving this, and it's never been done. It has not been done, if ever. Would they feel like we're stepping on toes? Would they feel like we are getting into an area where we don't have any real responsibility? I know other boards and commissions do they have historically done the review of the applications, the resumes, and then they provide their recommendation over, and typically those get approved. But in the municipal code, there's only one single board or commission that is by code supposed to be doing that. So we get into a situation where we're getting into these areas, and I've been in the situation of being on a planning commission where we have tried to do something that wasn't within our role or responsibility. And I do love having our legal counsel here saying, doesn't say you can't, we're not questioning that. The question is, does this potentially impact those discussions we're about to have? Will we, will it come as a surprise? Will they be upset about it? Because again, this has not happened in the past.
To clarify, your planning commission hasn't made this recommendation in the past, but you did mention, we do have other
Yes.
boards who make recommendations on
Yep.
potential members.
Because of the role of the planning commission, it's always been, it is at the, discretion of the former board of trustees, now council. And this has never been done.
And Chair Hemphill did share the intention
Right.
of planning commission.
Can I just say, mine's gonna be super quick. Probably the only thing I have to
Let
say
me.
about it.
Can I call the question?
Let's
Oh, yeah.
go with Vice Chair Brodus, and then we'll go to you, Commissioner Dreckman.
I believe the phrase is call the question?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Oh, did you want to call the question? What?
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering how long this,
Right.
where this is headed, I guess.
Okay.
Mine will just, that's my only opinion, is that I think maybe there's some more passion about this. I think it's fine. I don't think they're gonna be offended. That seems excessive to me, that they would be offended over that. I don't really understand why that would be offensive to anyone. They can just ignore it if they don't want to see it. So my personal opinion is that I'd be fine approving it. I'm just standing because it hurts my spine to sit this long. I'm not being rude or anything, but I personally would. I have no issue recommending Commissioner Booth and Commissioner Burns, and I would be fine moving forward with that. So
One item.
I don't need to be come back to, is my point.
Thank you. In the resolution, it states the terms beginning March 3rd, 2026, which, as I said earlier, isn't really what's happening. So if we do have a motion, I'd recommend striking the words beginning March 3rd, 2026.
Is this
So
something
moved.
that we vote on? We're voting on this resolution?
Voting
It's
on
a
this
resolution,
resolution.
so yes.
And I get to vote on myself being, I don't have to
We-
recuse myself from this?
I was gonna recuse.
I don't,
I would say Commissioner Booth and Commissioner Burns should recuse.
You don't have to, just so you know.
You don't have
You're
to,
not obligated to recuse.
but yes, that your intuition, I would recommend that too.
So, point of order or clarification. You're saying that the new commissioners won't start until May? Is that
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
May 17th or
The
May.
application says that the new commissioners are sitting on March 18th.
Oh, yeah, I you guys can answer that.
Yeah, basically the way the ordinance is written in municipal code, appointments have to happen April of odd numbered years now. This is filling 3 spots that were specifically appointed with an end date of May 17th, 2026.
Okay.
So that's the weirdness in this, and the town clerk's office runs all of our recruitment for all of our advisory boards, and will and they're aware that does need to get updated.
Okay.
And it's also an even numbered year.
You're correct.
Yeah.
It is a good- yes.
So
Does anybody
I
want
will
to make a
move
motion?
to,
Real quickly, just out of curiosity, how will this get to council? This is something that we're creating a resolution of.
Yes.
How will it end up on their agenda? Will it be part of the application material
Yes.
for the 2 individuals?
Should it
or-
pass, we will forward the signed resolution to the town clerk's office. It will be included in the packet of materials on March 3rd.
Okay, and we have no idea at this point who has or is applying. We're just saying the 2 individuals that we have up there.
Correct.
Vice Chair Broadus?
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
But this doesn't bypass any of the interview
No.
process.
Unfortunately. I
So
just-
this is just you saying,
This is the planning commission as a body recommending if we vote it yes. That's what it is.
then we like you.
Okay, Vice Chair Broadus?
So I move to approve with conditions, and the condition is that we remove the last phrase. Do I need to read the whole phrase? Yeah, remove the phrase beginning March 3rd, 2026. Resolution number P 2604, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Erie recommending that the Town Council reappoint Sherry Booth and Tim Burns to the Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Secretary, please call the vote.
Commissioner Booth.
recuse.
Recused.
Recused.
Sorry, recuse.
Commissioner Sawbush.
Yes.
Commissioner Dreckman.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Recused.
Commissioner Bayham.
Yes.
Vice Chair Broadus.
Yes.
Chair Hemphill.
Yes.
We have 5 votes in favor and 2 recusals. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I will be quick about my time is now 9:02 p.m. Sorry about that. And we've concluded general business staff reports.
We don't have any public hearings for March 4th, so if there's nothing else that the commission would like to put on the agenda, would request that we issue a cancellation.
I don't have anything right now. And I'll do that in commissioner reports.
Motion to cancel.
Yeah, okay, yeah, let's cancel the March
Okay.
4th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time is now 9:03 p.m. and we'll finish with commissioner reports and discussion. We'll go around the table. Who wants to start? Commissioner Salish.
So during the council meetings, there's been obviously an issue that is above our pay grade occurring up there. But there was a comment that was made by the mayor, the question of, do we have enough water for all of our development? I believe that is a topic that is squarely sitting with the comprehensive plan, because the comprehensive plan must include a water component. Is that something that we want to touch with a 30-foot pole where I feel like we should, where we have a discussion about, do we have enough water? Obviously, I know they're probably still having conversations if this is an important one, but at what point do we start to have these conversations?
Since we're just
someone
doing,
as someone who's done this for other municipalities,
let's not,
typical thing-
this is just a commissioner comment, not a question and answer thing.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be,
That's the
open
question for staff. At what point do we start touching that topic and start looking into that?
Go ahead.
we can have it on another meeting when we're not at 9 PM.
So,
So feel free to send an email.
Yeah, I'll send you an email about it. Okay, and then obviously over the weekend we had 3 tragedies that happened. So obviously my condolences and sympathies go out to all of those involved that were affected by it. And I just want to say, hug your loved ones, tell them that you love them, because life is short. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a few on my list. Okay, first one is security training. I still haven't done it yet, and it is due March 4th, I believe.
You're fired.
Good
I'm
thing
not
we
fired yet.
canceled that meeting, so you can
Yeah,
do
so
your
I can't.
security training.
Yeah. So get that done. Otherwise, you're going to get a message from IT and hopefully not get locked out of your email.
Exactly.
Next item is I'd just like to remind this commission to please keep me on copy with all emails to staff. You're welcome to ask staff questions, but please don't direct staff for process items. We are commissioned with majority approval for our opinion. As such, directing staff is not appropriate. Please work with me before making a request. And then finally, I'd like to thank Malcolm Fleming for his service to Erie as town manager. I had the opportunity and privilege to work closely with Malcolm as a home rule charter commissioner. And I greatly appreciated his insight and work. So, Malcolm, I wish you the best for your future. So, that concludes all the items on our agenda. Commissioner Booth, take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, time is now 9:06 PM and we are adjourned.